Hey, good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth here. Monday, January 21st, 2025. Uh, Cold. That's the big word for the day. No tropics talk today. This is not a tropical discussion. I know we're hurricane track, but we've branched out to cover other weather over the last several years. And this is going to be all about this very cold weather that's coming. And, I know there's a lot of people that say, man, it's winter. What is, come on. People should be able to deal with this stuff. But we're talking about inches of snow and very cold temperatures for big metropolitan areas like Houston and then across Louisiana, like Baton Rouge, maybe down to the Big Easy, maybe Pensacola, Florida. Yes, this is newsworthy. It is a big deal. There's going to be a lot of disruptions because of this. There's going to be very cold air coming in. And it was very well seen, out in model land many, many, many days ago, especially the big pattern change that has led to this cold air. So I figured, well, let's start the week off talking about it. I'll show you what I look at and kind of point you in the direction of some things that you might be interested in that can help you if you're in these areas and you want some pertinent information and just discussing and seeing what you guys are saying and thinking and talking about on our YouTube chat, on our Discord. And that's about that. Man, my hands are already getting dry. This is just something about that cold, dry air, right? Yeah, absolutely. You end up like these cactus back here that I've got, these knickknacks from when I go out to the Southwest. Anyway, good to see everybody. Let's jump over on YouTube real fast and just see who's there, who's in the room so far. All right, we got Sonny in here, William, and Attila, and we got Lynn and Dakota. Hi, Dakota, how are you? And HGA reset here in Houston. Yeah, ready for the winter storm. We hope so. And oh, Adam McDoom down in the Cayman Islands. Adam, you gonna get any cold air out of this? Yep, hopefully so, right? So yeah, let's get started. I'll just kind of show you some of the things that I am watching here. Let's jump back over to Zoom and we will share the old screen. There's the title card. Rare Gulf Coast winter storm indeed. All right, so let's start off with the National Weather Service homepage. This is pretty interesting. It really is. I know it's winter. I know it's, the last third of January, but that is really remarkable. Use the color red here. There we go. All this area here east of the Rockies, very cold. We're going to have a storm system across the south. We've got some lake effect snows, big time lake snows downwind of Erie and Ontario. And then these deeper blues all the way down into the west parts of Texas here, the Texas Panhandle, in most of New Mexico. That's your extreme cold warning. And again, yeah, it's winter, but let's just see, like, for example, here in the Panhandle of Texas, we got extreme cold warnings, and that's valid because folks down here are not used to it. All right. The wind chills -5 to +5 in the lowlands, as low as -15 in the mountains, and the temperatures could get down to near zero in some of these areas. And again, they're just not used to it over in these areas of the country. And so these extreme cold warnings are up for a reason. So what's very cold for people up north and they're used to it, not so much down south. So that's what I figured I would do is just take a tour across this map of the lower 48 here. Alaska's looking pretty good because when it's real cold in the lower 48, Alaska is usually warmer. That's just the way it is. The cold air gets dislodged. But let's start in the southwest, all right? And it is somewhat related to the pattern that we're in. In fact, it definitely is. We got the red flag warning, another setup here of a strong Santa Ana, relentless out that way, unfortunately. So the fire danger is still high, humidity values very low, fire weather watch. That's just so weird to see, isn't it? I think so. Like I couldn't get used to that. I'd have to move. Like wildfires like that and the urban fire interface there, yikes. So the reason that we get this in a very simplistic way, strong high pressure sitting up here that has come all the way across the pole, trying to draw a curved line there, because remember the Earth is a big ball, right? And it settles down over the lower 48, and you get these a gnat or something. How could it be gnats in January? Um, We do have geckos that live over there, so they probably like the warm water that the geckos like. Anyway, you get that high, and the flow around the high helps to funnel in the Santa Anas here into California. And it's, more complicated than that, but that's the basic setup. And this is a seriously strong, excuse me, high pressure area, which we'll take a look at in more detail shortly. But just to kind of juxtapose, okay, 0 to maybe 5, 10 above, whatever in Texas Panhandle. How about up here in North Dakota? Let's just check the extreme cold warning up there. Look at the difference. All right. So I'm out. See you later. Minus 24. No, thank you. The dew point is negative 33. The wind chill is minus 52. How? How do you even deal with that? I mean, they got a person here holding the hat, and I guess it's kind of one of those androgynous pictures. You don't know if it's a male or a female. It doesn't matter. It should be a frozen, like something. Like just no way. That is very cold. That's extreme cold. But it is interesting that this extreme cold warning is not the same as the extreme cold warning for the Texas Panhandle, down the West Texas Panhandle. Good old Texas with two panhandles, right? Maybe even three if you think about the southern part of the state. But yes, this is very, very cold. This is dangerous cold, and I don't even know how people survive. People, animals, the like, infrastructure. Yikes. But so there you go. And then all these other areas, you just have your regular cold weather advisory or something like that. And there are even some extreme cold warnings in parts of the Appalachians in here. Let's jump over real quick to the lakes region. One of my favorite things are lake effect snows, and that's very prevalent. We can just jump on the radar real quick here. The Weather Service radar, it's not the best interface, but it'll work for now. There's one of those streamers coming across Lake Ontario. There's another one coming off of Erie over here. Not bad. Yeah, pretty good lake snows for those folks. They're used to it. They can plow it and they can deal with it. But you got the freezing spray warning because of the wind, and you get that spray coming off these lakes. I've seen that. That's some pretty neat stuff there. And by the way, in terms of how much, 8 to 12 south of Watertown, talking about the Tug Hill region, that's the bullseye. And then as you get farther away, the gradient is pretty, it's not, you've seen higher, put it that way. So 1 inch in the far reaches of the lake zones, and maybe up to a foot south of Watertown along the I-81 corridor. All right, so let's go back out to the old map here. Draw your attention down south. That's the big one right there. All that pink that I have circled in red. Winter storm warnings, and this is just incredible. It really is. All the way down here, with the exception of extreme South Texas, where there is an extreme cold warning. I mean, listen, stop the share for a second to talk to you. Full screen, Mark. The National Tropical Weather Conference is coming in April in South Padre Island, which is currently under an extreme cold warning. Our friend Tim Smith down there, and we have Alex over in San Antonio. I mean, my goodness, like you guys must be hating this, I guess. I don't know. But that's how cold it is. That is all the way down into extreme South Texas. We'll go back and share the screen now. I mean, that's pretty substantial to see that kind of cold that far south. Winter storm warnings, including Raymondsville, been there. I mean, go through these cities. I always drive down from Houston, by the way. Um, Not quite to Brownsville and Harlingen, but close. But South Padre Island, let's just look at Brownsville and vicinity. Freeze warning, cold weather advisory, freeze watch, extreme cold warning. And for them, this kind of cold 36, above, and people would scoff at that. But look, they are not used to it. For that area, you all right, cat? Cat's making noise over there. That is extremely cold. So it's all relative and, location specific. But this is a pretty big deal, even for areas in South Texas here, as you can see. Now, if we move up the coast towards Houston, at least 4 million people in the greater Houston area. and it is going to get dicey around there to say the least. You got the winter storm warning, your snowfall. This is just remarkable. 3 to 4 inches around the Houston area where they do not have snowplows. And the plan is let it fall, let it melt, and good luck, everybody. Bush Hobby Airport's going to be closed. That, ladies and gentlemen, will cause massive ripple effects in travel, and people need to plan for that. They're going to close at midnight tonight, from what I saw them posting on social media last evening. And you think about Bush Airport and Hobby, Southwest, American, United, all the others that fly in there, they're going to be closed. They're going to be rolled up starting at midnight tonight and probably through the day Wednesday. And you think about those mid-continent airports and all the people that need to fly and connect there, that will start to have ripple effects going out. Then you're going to have other major airports that could have problems. New Orleans, I have flown into that airport as well, Baton Rouge, Mobile. These are small regional airports. You're going to disrupt a lot of air travel east of the Rockies just with Bush and Hobby being shut down. And they're going to cease operations. We're not talking delays. Yeah, I might sit out there and enjoy whatever coffee and some bad food court food or whatever for a few hours. No, 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 no. They're going to be closed. Done. They said don't even come to the airport. That is a big deal. This is huge. This is going to have big economic impacts on people. There are going to be probably tons of car accidents, especially in an area as large as Houston, because believe it or not, there are people. This is hard to believe, but it is still true. Even in 2025, they realize it's cold, but they have no idea that the snow is coming. There are people that are still completely disconnected from everyday weather for whatever reason. And when you got 4+ million people in an area like Houston, that's a pretty good percentage of people that just they don't know. Oh, it's snowing. Well, okay, this is weird, and they got to still get to wherever they're going, and there's going to be big problems with that. You mark my words. We'll be watching it on social media unfold in real time. Then the storm system slides east, and it's actually an interesting setup. I'll show you that in just a moment. So Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, not quite into Georgia and the Carolinas yet with warnings. And in some cases, I don't know how they prioritize which warning supersedes others. For example, I know that there's a winter storm watch for parts of South Carolina, and it shows it right there, winter storm watch. But the one that shows up on the map here is the cold weather advisory. So maybe once it's upgraded to a warning and that pink shows up. Anyway, just nuances of how the Weather Service layers work here. But this storm system will impact the I-10 corridor, which is a heavily traveled. And by the way, speaking of that, between New Orleans over here and Baton Rouge, you got the Atchafalaya River Basin and that 17-mile bridge. Good luck with that. Have fun. That's going to be a mess. I just can't even imagine. I mean, seriously. Wow. Tanker trucks, regular big rigs, the regular traffic. Have you ever been on that thing across the Atchafalaya? That is a sight to behold on a good day. And now with cold and snow coming, and potentially several inches down there, it's going to be even worse. So let me talk about that for a second. I just want to help you out here with some things. Who's calling me? Don't know who that is. Want to set you up with some things that could really help you to kind of figure out. I know a lot of people put emphasis on, well, how much snow is going to fall? I don't really think that's too big of a concern. Like, don't focus on that. Focus on what the impacts are. We're talking about this with hurricanes in your area. And the best way to figure that out, because there's a lot of stuff happening on social media, there's a lot of noise out there. Most of it is pretty reliable, but there is a lot coming at you. So just to simplify it for you, to make it real easy, this is what I would do. You can go to the weather.gov homepage, and for example, let's just click in here to Southeast Louisiana. And a lot of times you get these infographics and these links to them, and those are very helpful. Absolutely. In fact, we can just kind of go through them. Look at that. That's pretty cool. Somebody put this together. And that's very, very helpful. And the pink, or whatever that is, extreme conditions, Tuesday going into Wednesday, major, so forth. Forecast snow amounts, yes, those are there. Yes, they are important. The high-end snow forecast, That's interesting. Up to 10 inches. This is your 10% chance. So 1 in 10, right? Or 10 out of 100, whatever. And then your winter storm planning timeline, etc. But what's really helpful, let's say you live over here in Hammond, Louisiana. You can either click it or you can type it up in the little box up here, Hammond, or your zip code, whatever. But let's just click on Hammond, and then you go to the landing page, and it gives you all this helpful information. Anything in red over here, this is definitely worth reading. Now, I know a lot of people just want to see a simple point and click, what's it say, graphic, but come on, we got to get away from that. We got to get more into reading and doing the homework ourselves. Having everything spoon fed to us with a very simple 5-second read, that's not helpful. It isn't. You got to read some of this stuff because it's really interesting. Some of the things that are in these products, the winter storm warning, it's all laid out right through here, what you should expect, etc. And then there are the discussions, like the area forecast discussion, which is written, heads up to you, by people who live in this area. This is not from Washington, D.C. or some centralized whatever, and those are fine too, like from the Weather Prediction Center or SPC for broad brushed severe weather threats. This is written, and usually they put their initials at the bottom of these discussions, and there they are. I don't know who these folks are, but those are the initials. Those are real people. Those are not AI agents or whatever. Those are real folks that live in this area. So this is good stuff, and it can tell you what to look for, and it gives you a little bit of meteorology too, and you can Google some of this stuff or put it into Chat GPT and it'll explain it further. And you can learn more about what's happening. Just take a few minutes. That's my advice. It's very, very helpful. But look at this. Some of this stuff is concerning. It really is. A low of 14 down there in Louisiana, they're just not used to that. The animals down there, they're not used to that. It's just not unprecedented, but that is not a typical thing to see. Not at all. And that is going to have some serious impacts for people across the area. So it is a big deal. And when you see that much of the area, I mean, I say east of the Rockies, I mean, it's kind of, whoops, that's terrible. There we go. It's kind of the Rockies east instead of just east of the Rockies. That's a pretty big deal. All right. So let's take a look at where things are now. Starting to see some cloud cover moving into Texas down here. It's not even, that's what's weird about this. It's not even like a big low. We're not getting like a Miller A that starts down here and then runs up the coast and bombs out off of New England and Nova Scotia. That's not what this is at all. It's just sort of this wave along the Arctic front, and there's different meteorological terms like isentropic lift. But to you and me at home, and well, not so much me because I do know this stuff pretty in depth, but the regular person that doesn't know this stuff, hey, it just means cold and wintry precipitation. But I did want to point out that it is not your typical low moving up the coast kind of deal. It's more of this, like I said, wave along the Arctic front that's moved down, and the very warm Gulf of Mexico, you get this instability, and there you're off to the races. So this is what it looks like on the GFS. This is really interesting too. I want to show you this graphic because this is the 500 millibar chart and just kind of point out a couple things. I got to figure out, I guess we use black here. Look at this. So way up at 500 millibars, 20,000 feet in the atmosphere, the flow is straight out of the north and it came over the pole from Siberia. So this truly is a seriously cold Arctic air mass that has filled into and spilled into the lower 48. And it does, it fills out because it's thick. The air mass has a lot of depth to it. It's a very thick, cold chunk of air that has moved across the pole. It's part of the polar vortex. And yes, that's a real thing. And it's just kind of rotated around, lowered the heights over here, and allowed that cold air to spill in to the lower 48, North America here, right? And that's the way it looks now, just to show you way out in time. As we get into early February, it switches, thank goodness. If it's not going to snow, then don't worry about it. Forget it being cold. That's my opinion. We go to more zonal flow. So the origin of the air masses will be off the Pacific, cold, but modified, big time. So you have modified Pacific air coming across the country, and everything to the south will be a lot more mild. This is 2 weeks out, and I know you're not supposed to show 2 weeks out, right? But the pattern hopefully will improve from this. As you can see, it evolved there, big upper level low out west, which by the way, hopefully this will bring, I just keep forgetting to turn on the thickness of the telestrator there. Hopefully this will bring some wet weather and higher humidity values and whatnot to our friends in Southern California and elsewhere. But yeah, look at the pattern. It does change to gradually more of a zonal flow from this to that in a couple weeks' time. So we won't have a January thaw this year. I guess it'll have to be a February thaw. So this is what it looks like. The old GFS here and the models, it's going to snow. Like worrying about the models and trends or whatever, that's fine. But look at this, the blues and the pinks and the purples or whatever, that's your mix and frozen, sleet, what have you. GFS paints a pretty good snowstorm for areas that aren't used to it. But notice there's no surface low down here. Lots of isobars. The Arctic fronts come down here, packed up against all this very warm, unstable air, and you get sort of this weird hybrid type. It's hard to describe it. It's not, there's no low pressure. It's like a surface trough rather than a cyclone at the surface. And the low doesn't form until later. It's analyzed here way off the coast of North Carolina. But there's not any big storm that originates down here, like I said before, that ends up running up the coast with one of those bomb cyclones, what we call the Miller A. This is more of your overrunning, and we call that isentropic lift, so forth and so on. The cold air is very dense and thick, and the warmer, lighter, moisture-laden air runs over the top of it. And where the air column is cold enough all the way to the surface, you get snow. And where it's not, you get freezing rain or sleet. And that is the setup. So you see one comes through, then there's another one, and then we're out at about a week's time. And maybe as we get towards the end of the month, some more action for the Rockies and parts of the Intermountain West, the Great Basin. We shall see. All right. So one more look at the models here. They are somewhat important. Euro, very similar, not much change with that. This is off of Pivotal Weather. I still don't know why Pivotal Weather gets their Euro data in so much faster than Tropical Tidbits. Just something I've noticed, but neither here nor there. But yes, the northern extent, cold enough, we will get a lot of snow. So much so, and so much snow, that my friend Dylan Federico from Dallas, well, he's from New Orleans, but he works in Dallas at the Fox station there at Fox 4 Dallas. He's flying to New Orleans for this. The guy has chased many a hurricane. Now he's going to chase some snow down in Cajun country there in Louisiana. So let me take a little break here, jump over on YouTube before we continue on and just see what you guys. Let's see if I can work with you here a little bit, Will. We'll put that. There we go. And we'll do that. All right, so we don't have to worry about dog anymore. I don't know what dog was saying, but apparently dog was not being pleasant for everybody else. So, what do we got? 100 people watching. It's gonna go back. We had a lot of dog comments there. So let's see what you guys were saying real quick. Um, so yeah, so I got your message about that, by the way, David, and that is going to be interesting to see. I'm glad I scrolled back to see this. So let's look at the Gulf of Mexico real quick. David Eber saying, please don't tell me that the Gulf is warmer than normal after this. It's going to snow in the Gulf tomorrow. No way it doesn't cool off. That is a very good point, and I'm glad. And I saw David message me on Facebook about that. So let's jump over. I'll reshare the screen and we'll talk about that for a second. So here are the anomalies as of yesterday. Remember, this is always a day behind. So what is really interesting about this, the shelf areas right up against the coast are running well below normal right now, which makes sense because those are the shallowest areas and they're the most prone to cooling off the fastest, right? That just makes sense. Out in the Gulf, this very warm area relative to average right here, and we are talking 2 to 3 plus Celsius, warmer than average. Yes, this will cool off a lot on the north side, but this is A, not going to last but a few days, and B, the Arctic front probably won't penetrate south more than about this. And Adam McDoom down here is like, no, I want the cold air. Like, why do you live in Grand Cayman? Anyway, Adam and I can hash that out and next time I see him. But David, I just don't think that this air mass is going to get far enough south and stay long enough to really knock these anomalies down. And once this lifts out and the pattern changes, and we get a big high sitting out here over the Atlantic again, you're just going to funnel this very warm Atlantic and Caribbean water right back in here because that's the source. All that warm water is coming in from the Caribbean, funneled through the Yucatan Channel. You come up here, it does the loop current deal, comes out, makes the Gulf Stream happen, so forth and so on. So I agree with you on one hand that yes, we will see some cooling of the sea surface temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico, but I don't think it's going to be nearly as dramatic as we would hope for. And it's just going to warm right back up because the pattern's going to flip. We're going to go right back to what's keeping the Gulf warm anyway. So that'll be something really interesting to keep an eye on. And I love, love, love the fact that folks like David know how to watch that kind of stuff. And he has to. I mean, he lives in Louisiana. Weather is part of everything they do down there. Absolutely. So that's just really cool. I'm glad he keeps up with that. All right. So what else we got? Lubbock, Texas. Looks like Lubbock gonna be cold, but probably gonna get left out of the snow this time, huh? Yeah, bummer. How much the Gulf cools? Yep. Hi, Mark. Me in southern New England only got 1 inch of snow from that snowstorm, and now in Florida's getting a bigger snowstorm than us. It is so embarrassing. You're right, and that's the thing. Louisiana's going to get more snow than I will. I was so excited about it the last several days, telling my kids, I think we're really going to get some serious snow. And now I don't think that's going to be the case. And we'll get a little bit, but it's not going to be nearly as much as I was hoping for. And back to that real quick. Let's just look at the GFS for those of us in the Southeast. Not the GFS, just the models. Mesoscale models, let's look at the high resolution. Hey, the 18Z is coming in. Let's go back and look at the 12Z. This is the high resolution rapid refresh model. Take it back to the initial. And it's a pretty good high res model. Paints some pretty significant snows for Louisiana across the Gulf Coast, what's called the I-10 corridor. And then up in my neck of the woods, remember, I'm in Wilmington, North Carolina. Tomorrow, late afternoon into the evening and overnight tomorrow night, a little bit, just looking at the raw data here. But, Charleston, probably more than us. Southern Georgia here. And you remember, this is where Helene went through and laid down all those trees. Now you're going to have all those dead trees with snow on them. That's just bizarre, isn't it? But yeah, we're going to kind of get ripped off. But even on the HUR here, notice the absence of an L anywhere. There's no low. There's one down there. Surface low sitting to the north of Cuba, but there's not a surface low. This is a different type of setup. So we just don't have the mechanism. And here's the big clue. This is some meteorology for you. The lift that you need from something like a good, strong surface low, that's what's lacking. And by the time the atmosphere gets moist enough, especially here in the Carolinas, to support snow coming all the way down to the ground, the best lift mechanism, you got to have some, you can have cold air and you can have the moisture, but you got to have a way to mix those two up and make something happen. And during convective season, we call that instability, and that has to do with cold air over the warm air, and the warm air lifts through that colder air, and you get instability. If you have a cap where you have warm over warm, you have all the humidity, all the CAPE you want, and all the heating of the day, but if it's warm over warm, that inversion gets set up and you don't get severe weather. Same thing with wintry weather. If you don't have the lifting mechanism, and in this case, the low pressure area, because that's what low pressure is the air is rising. The greatest lift just isn't there this time around, and that's the key ingredient that's missing. We don't have some powerful low with upper level energy helping to lift that atmosphere up and wring out that moisture. That mechanism is missing this time, and so we're going to miss out on the big snows here in southeast North Carolina, east of I-95. An inch or two, probably. It's definitely going to be cold enough, but just unfortunately, if you're a snow lover, now some people hate this stuff. And, make no mistake, this will cause problems. There will be power outages. There will be pipes burst. You got to temper the excitement, the kids in us that love a good snowstorm. This will have impacts. Probably going to lose people, because wrecks, because, carbon monoxide poisoning of people running generators. I mean, bad weather does have bad consequences. It's just the way it is sometimes. So you just got to keep that in the back of our minds. It's exciting to think about a big snowstorm, but even these, do have ramifications for impacting us in a very negative way. All right. So I think that was about it. I was going to leave off with the golf thing. David, I appreciate you mentioning that. So let me jump back over as we wrap this up to the YouTube page, see if you guys have any comments or questions, and I'll sign off in just a couple minutes here. All right. So, hey, Mark, do you think it's possible to get Gulf effect snow? So, in this case, probably not, because you need the flow to come off the Gulf and it's going to be kind of running parallel. And it's so flat down along the Gulf Coast areas that there's not much, and there's that word again, lift. The big reason that you get the lake effect snows, especially off of Lake Ontario and the Tug Hill Plateau, it comes up a little bit, the orographic lift, and you just got to have some way to get that air to go up. You got to get that air to go up and wring out that moisture, and you just don't get that too much along the Gulf, unfortunately. Now, maybe it wouldn't even be Gulf effect. It's just part of the overall pattern. Sometimes you can see that off the Atlantic, by the way, in some of our like Chesapeake, part of Virginia. Trying to think of where else I've seen ocean effect snow. Certainly eastern Massachusetts, but anyway, Gulf of Mexico, I doubt it. That's a great question, though. Any snow forecast for Jacksonville, Florida? You know what? Let's just take a look at that real quick. I like this interactivity that we can do here, and I can help you to find the answer to that question. We go back to the big map here, click on Northeast Florida, got your key messages up in here, and let's go look at Jacksonville. So Jacksonville is just outside of the winter storm warning. By the way, let's just look at that. I mean, seriously? I didn't even notice this. This is bonkers. That's on me, not looking at the details. Um, the winter storm warnings go all the way down to Gainesville and beyond, not quite to Ocala and not east of Jacksonville, including, I mean, look, it's the western part of Jacksonville, right? We're just cutting hairs here. But Tallahassee, Perry, which has had the eyes of hurricanes go over it one after the other these last few years, right? Idalia, Debbie, and Helene, if I'm not mistaken, all three of those went right over Perry or darn close to it, and Hermine back in 2016 as well. But anyway, I digress. But what about Jacksonville? Because that was your question. Click on Jacksonville and let's see what the forecast is. Low of 31, so more likely freezing rain, wintry mix, maybe some snow mixed in there. But let's just read the discussion real quickly here, and this will explain what the deal is. And this is what I was talking about earlier. It's kind of getting long in the tooth there. It's about 12 hours old, but from 4:12 this morning, um, model trends are generally consistent this morning with the best potential for measurable snow, southeast Georgia, accumulations a half to 1 inch, Interstate 10 corridor. I'm just trying to see anything pops out about Jacksonville proper. Um, so ice accumulation, you know, probably not anything significant. And the biggest reason why for Jacksonville is the air column is not going to be cold enough all the way through. So the rain's going to fall. Actually, it'll snow in the upper levels, melt, and then become rain, and then just hit the surface as freezing rain. So I don't know. I mean, some parts of Jacksonville you could see snow, but in terms of accumulating snow, I do doubt it. But that's a good question. So Adam says they got the frontal boundary. Might cross, may dissipate before it reaches Jamaica, though. Yep, we'll keep an eye on that. Cold air advection. That's the word, by the way. You get that cold air draining across the Gulf. I just don't think, as I said earlier, it's going to last long enough. Hey, there's Pete. Pete looks like about 1 to 2 inches for Charleston. Pete, I was thinking about. Pete's a real good friend of our project. Um, Known him for several years. He lives down there in the Charleston area. I almost thought about just going down to Charleston, but I was like, you know what? We get a couple inches up here, we get lucky. Kids will like it. They like to do this is pretty crazy. The kids like to jump on the trampoline when it gets cold enough. We'll spray it down and make like a little ice rink on the trampoline part. And then it's about a half inch thick. I do this when it gets super cold. And you get this little layer of ice, and then they jump on it. And you jump on it enough, it starts getting pulverized. And it's the loudest sound you've ever heard. The neighbors probably hate it. But oh well. Nothing in the HOA about that. Um, but if it could snow on top of the ice trampoline that I'm going to make, that would be really awesome. I mean, it just really would. That's what I'm saying, man. You got to enjoy this kind of stuff. We shall see. So yeah, an inch or so in Wilmington. That's what I was thinking. I could go to Charleston, but I'd miss out on what's going to happen up here, right? All right. Oh yeah, the 360 cam out there in the Outer Banks. It's a good point. This could be interesting for some 360 video as well. Um, Anything else? So brutal that southeastern New England, Long Island, New York City got less snow than the Gulf. Yeah, I know. That is, it's just one of those situations. Let us have it down here. February is a big snow month for the Northeast, and you guys that live up there, you know that. Some 360 video of the ice trampoline. Maybe. Now that TikTok's back, maybe one of my kids could throw it on there. All right. Well, let you guys go. Appreciate you tuning in. This is just what I look at. Like I said, I like these candid discussions. Um, and we'll see what happens over the next few days. I'll do another update later in the week, maybe Thursday or Friday. Probably Friday. We'll just bookend the work week with a video, and that'll just be the regular, concise tabs, Mark going through everything discussion, and we'll take a look at the next several days, winter weather wise, and the warm up that'll be coming, and we'll look at some stuff related to the tropics. And by Friday, we'll know what that cold air advection did to the Gulf of Mexico. To David and other people's point, that is very interesting, because you know how much I harp about that, how warm the Gulf is compared to average, and it will be really interesting to see what effect this has on it. All right. I live in Pensacola area. That's interesting too. My wife's parents live down there. We were just there at the end of December. In fact, little side story for you. We stayed at an Airbnb not far from the airport, Pensacola Airport, kind of on the southeast side of town, pretty close to the water. Anyway, and they had a heated pool. They heated it up to about 87, the owners did, and they were there, the host. They had a little side cabin or something they stayed in. Anyway, we went swimming December 27th. We had severe thunderstorms. Remember, there's a tornado like up in Alabama. There was like December 26th, 27th was the second busiest tornado outbreak of 2024. And now that same area are going to get snow. Unbelievable. It just shows you how the weather can be around here. All right. Let me get back over to my Zoom controls so I can start to do my sign off stuff. You guys, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you spending some time with me. Again, this is exactly what I would look at even without an audience. I just think it's cool to include you in from time to time. And I want to do this more and more when we get to severe weather season, obviously during hurricane season, since that is our marquee, what we do the most, hurricane track, yeah. But winter weather, severe weather, any high impact stuff, I look at it. I figure why not share what I do with you folks. So I appreciate you tuning in and giving it a look with me as well. Have a good rest of your Monday. I'm Mark Sudduth. Thanks for tuning in. I'll talk to you again on the regular update Friday afternoon.